Welcome to What's Brewing with IAT Insurance Group, where episode after episode we cover the latest marketplace trends with subject matter experts who are fueling our mission to provide insurance answers together. Grab your cup and let's settle in.
Hi, I'm Bobbie Goldie, and welcome to What's Brewing. I am the Senior Vice President of Corporate Distribution and Moving and Storage here at IAT. Today, I am joined by two of my friends and colleagues, Kevin Kolb and Nancy Ross Anderson. Kevin works with me on the moving and storage side as an underwriting VP, and Nancy is a loss control specialist. Thank you both for joining me today.
Of course.
You're welcome.
And today, what we thought would be really beneficial was to continue that conversation on strategic cargo theft and the impact on the commercial transportation space, such as the recent FMCSA scam. Kevin, I know you listened to the podcast, and did it hit home with you at all managing the moving and storage book of business?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's definitely timely, and I'll say eye-opening as well. I mean, the rise in fraudulent activities, we all see it. We hear in the news, we hear stories. We have a couple examples in our own moving and storage book of business. But yeah, so companies hijacking companies' DOT numbers and obtaining fake certificates of insurance, it's alarming, and we're seeing a lot of it. It's almost like out of a movie. A transnational organized crime ring, ties to Russian organized crime. We got FBI involvement, local police, multiple other protection agencies. It really could be a Netflix documentary about the trials and tribulations of these fraudulent activities. But it all started with a business owner's personal identity being stolen. That's where it started. And this individual was really hit by this large organized crime ring where they stole this person's identity. They produced fake documentation, able to produce a fake driver's license. They used this information, the fraudulent credentials, to go into and attack the business. Where they get the company's DOT number. They were producing certificates of insurance based off of this to make them look like a much larger trucking organization than the actual this insured was. The whole intent of hijacking this number, the DOT number, was really for them to travel using their own trucks, using this hijacked number, with the goal of stealing high-valued mechanical goods. That was the intent of this organization. So, really was when I heard about this and looked at with this risk and this situation, it really was kind of a stopping my tracks of how big and how organized this was. And then, so just really crazy example there. So yeah, transnational organization crime ring. You can't make it up. A second example, if you had another second example here, Bobbie, it was a little bit of a smaller situation, and actually, which is scary side of it, is much more frequent. Where again, there's fraudulent requests happening at the certificate level, where companies they're stealing the DOT numbers, and again, the attempt is to pick up shipments that frankly aren't theirs. And so what's happening is just that cyber type exposure, where they get the information, they're able to get the DOT number, and they're able to presume that identity. And how we found out about this one was how the certificates of insurance were being requested. They were coming in on a really strange Gmail account. And that's how it was identified, basically how the email was coming in. Both the insurance agency and us caught that, and we were able to shut that down.
Hey, Kevin, I'd like to slowly transition into what can organizations do to limit their exposure on this. And I know you mentioned certificates twice. And in the one example, you even talked about the agent and IAT noticing this. Is there any correlation with the first time you talked about certificates? And is there something as agents and carriers we can do, not just the insured?
It sounds simple, but the first step, Bobbie, in my opinion, is just raising that level of awareness. I think at times we all get kind of comfortable in our just daily routines. And I hate to say this, but there's almost a shadow back there where we have these organizations behind us always trying to find ways to tap into the information. I mean, on a personal note, we've all seen the text phishing schemes that we get, the personal emails we get. This is happening at the company level as well. So number one is frankly, just be aware of emails you're receiving, information requests you get. Is there a sense of urgency? Educate yourself on this whole situation. So raising awareness is step one. And step two, I know Nancy will get into this in a little bit, but just being aware of your DOT number and just checking on that regularly. Any kind of unauthorized changes, any type of hits on that, and just be aware of it. It doesn't hurt to log in, maybe change your password every now and then, more than you maybe want to, and that really does protect you.
So Nancy, uh, thinking of, you and your experience, obviously, and what you've seen on your side, uh, what are some things, in addition to what Kevin said, that we can give as items for our insureds or our agents to share with our insureds on things they can do to reduce the expense?
Well, there's quite a few things to do. First is that for every government website, there has been a individual sign-on ID and password. Once you create an account on there, all of your government websites, TSA, Homeland Security, food and beverage, or not food and beverage, but the Food and Drug Administration, the DOT, and TWIC for port work, it's all going to use the same ID and password. And that is actually, I think it's good and bad. One is that you will have only one password to remember, but you do need to make sure that you're not using the same password for every website, because I do see that a lot where, it's 123 ABC or something really simple, and those are really easy to guess. In addition to that, one thing that I noticed is that you have to send in or scan a personal identification, a passport, a driver's license, some kind of photo ID in order to create the account. So it is really important that if they have passports, I would suggest using passports rather than driver's licenses, because frankly, driver's licenses are very easy to manufacture and
Yes.
easy to clone. Also, their phones, if they're doing something on their phone, or their phones are cloned, because when you log into the site, they're going to send a text, an email, a phone call, something to your phone or to some other thing that you should be able to actually answer. And if your phone is cloned, then the person that is doing it is going to know that they can answer the phone.
I mean, there's a lot of steps to have to avoid that happening in the first place, right?
Yeah.
I guess we kind of see it, raising the awareness, understanding that these things are out there, understanding that you got to be on the defensive mind, that information is power, and people who are looking for power want your information. And part of your job, if you're managing your business, is how do you protect your home? How do you protect your goods? And that's the not using the same password for everything, checking in on your DOT number on a regular basis, not once every 2 years where you're supposed to provide updates, but more regularly, and make sure that it hasn't been hijacked. And that's unfortunately where we are today, where you literally need to have active oversight and protect yourself. And that's unfortunately the situation we live in today.
Yeah, and Kevin, to add upon that, you made me think of something. Typically, I have some experience on the cyber insurance side, and typically organizations like brokers, moving and storage companies, trucking companies, they continue to think that they're not a target of the bad actors, right? So what that leads to is a little more lax on the cybersecurity side, or the training, or the keeping your folks up to speed. So understanding you're not a large financial institution or an airline or any other like company that has a lot of private information or a lot of reasons to get into your systems, the thing that's so important is that you do have to have a baseline of cyber hygiene. it's really important. And some of the stats out recently are showing that organizations that typically are not targeted, such as these small, mid-sized businesses that are in like manufacturing or trucking or whatever it may be, are actually more of the targets nowadays. And it's for the very reason I said. It's for that cyber hygiene, because either they can't afford it or they feel like they don't need it.
Well, yeah, I would say, I mean, Bobbie, to your point, I mean, if you take a 10 employee operation that operates in maybe 2 different states, what are they up against? They're up against a transnational organized crime ring with ties to organizations like the Russian mob. And the only way to fight that, once they have you, once they get the fraudulent information and get your credentials and able to take over the business's identity, we need the help of some serious organizations like the FBI. And that's you don't want to get to that level. You want to be the level where you literally just delete that one email, you don't answer that one phone call, or you don't respond to that one text, and protect your house. And that's really the number one way to avoid this, is to have that level of awareness, to not click on that link, and to not populate your information on a fake website.
So that's a great segue, Nancy. You recently done a blog for us, and it was about the recent FMCSA scam. I read the blog, it's pretty interesting. And you started talking about these governmental entities that are requiring, updates in, login credentials and how you access your information. Do you kind of want to walk through what actually happened?
Yeah, I'll be happy to. One of the things that people don't normally look at is that when they see something that ends in GOV, which is the government website, they just assume that it's illegitimate. But unless it actually comes from, and just like with regular protocols, you don't just want to click on any links. In fact, in our own business, when they send out those ones, anytime I see something that comes from my boss, I want to open it. Even if it's not right. So I do find that, and it's tempting to want to just say, wait a minute, that's not really how we would send that, So anyway, there's two things particularly that are happening, is that people are getting texts and emails from safety@fmc.gov or something else very similar to that. And what they're doing is that they're phishing. They want to know, okay, they create a sense of urgency and say, you've got to get this, you've got to fill out this form, but they're also asking for a lot of personal information that DOT would not normally ask for, like social security numbers, and they want you to send the driver's license. And so there's been an ongoing issue with that. One of the things that companies can do besides just understanding that is that they need to go in and look not only at their DOT number, but they need to go in and look at their CSA information. Because if somebody is using their DOT number, they're more than likely getting inspections that are going to affect the company's basic scores. And that's often with moving and storage companies. Trucking companies usually know about it. Moving and storage companies don't always know about it. One of the questions that we ask when we're doing a survey is, do you have a computer, a security program for your internet? And they always look at me like, what? And I have to say, like individual sign-on IDs and passwords and a firewall. And many times I have to go into depth to explain that, because they don't always understand the terminology. And that's something that we probably want to consider talking to them about, only in terms of the fact that they are a target for people who want to get the information and maybe steal cargo or steal loads or steal their identities.
That's a valid point. And I think, there are simple systems or security things you can put in that are very beneficial and easy to keep updated. Kevin, when you talked about the first claim or incident, I should say, the second one, you were like, we caught it really quick. The other one seems like it went on a little longer. did they have any protocol in the event something like this happened? Because if you don't, it's going to take a long time to get back up and running. So do you know on this one if they had protocol?
Yeah, in that first example, the the business was surprised of the situation. So they were not prepared for the scope and depth, and frankly, I guess the power that came upon this business to do what they did. So I would say no, the preparation was not there in this case. So again, as Nancy alluded to, it's what's their firewall, what's their protections, what are some of the supporting behaviors in place with the business itself. That wasn't there, so that when the company stole that individual's identity and they basically then get into the back door into the business, that crime ring was able to just basically run with it for maybe 10 days or so before we caught up to them.
Based on what you're saying, Kevin, and the timing of that incident, it's also very important to consider a business continuity plan so that in the event something like this happens, it won't freeze your organization. You will still be able to conduct business. You will get up faster. Maybe it won't take as long to get back to,
Yeah, no, Bob, you're spot on. So this example, to your point, I mean, the operation, frankly, couldn't operate anymore. Their trucks, we had to lock things down, make sure who's on first base, who's on second base, get everything back to the way it should have been. We literally, at one point, were like, well, which trucks have a fake DOT number out there in what state? Are all our loads, all the truck loads accounted for? That took time, and that takes money. That's stressful for the business. Think about the customers who are also impacted that they're trying to serve. So the domino effect is huge, and time consuming when these things hit. So yeah, to your point of having a plan up front, a little bit of investment up front is a much more a better use of your time and money up front than trying to react to something on the back end.
Nancy, as you were talking about the FMSCA scam, this was a phishing scam. And so one of the things that I would like you to talk about is a little bit more of how do you manage through these sorts of phishing scams? What can organizations do?
Okay, well, one of the things that they can do is whenever an email comes in that might be suspicious, that they need to, whoever is getting it needs to hover their cursor over the email address to verify if it's a legitimate address. And it's going to be fmcsa.dot.gov and maybe some things behind it, but it's always going to be, it's never going to be filings at .gov, or it's never going to be safety.gov, because that's not legitimate addresses. The other thing is they can avoid clicking on suspicious links or downloading attachments. If it does have something, if a URL looks suspicious, don't click on it. That's the first thing. And also beware of the urgency. They say, okay, you need to do this right now, otherwise we're going to shut down your DOT number or we're going to audit you. And that's one of the things that the folks who are doing the phishing want to create, that sense of urgency that it needs to be addressed immediately. And also, don't share any personal information over an email. Sensitive information via unsecured email communications, they won't request, none of the government agencies are going to request personal information, account numbers, passwords, DOT PIN numbers, credit card details in an email. And they're also not going to have you download something to fill it out and send it in. They're going to direct you to their website, and you need to go in and make sure that you go to their website, not click on the link that's necessarily in the email. But know that you need to go to the DOT website in order to do that, and whatever government agency it is. And then if it is a suspicious email, you need to report it. Report it to the FMCSA, report it to your IT department if you have one, because that helps prevent other companies and other individuals from falling victim to the same kind of scam.
Absolutely, absolutely. And another simple thing, too, to add on to that is there's great training videos out there on these sorts of things that can walk, organizations and their employees through that to understand, what these look like and what not to do. And, those are things you can do that are pretty reasonably priced, and you can do them on an annual basis. And that will additionally help with folks lessening the exposure of these sorts of incidents, because as we can see, it's not slowing down. And Kevin, you talking about 2 examples in a short amount of time for the organization is pretty wild. So just think how many are out there that we don't know about.
Yeah, and then also think about too. We know of the current method of preference to try to get the information today. We all know that there's so much power and time being spent to find new ways to get this information that we haven't even thought about. And so that's just another reason to be on the defensive and making sure that you have your controls in place, that you can control yourself or your own business, because you don't know what's coming down next month or next year with the new attempt and the new way to get your information.
Absolutely.
Yeah, as we as users or as companies or as individuals get more sophisticated, they're going to continue to get more sophisticated also.
Absolutely. And, Nancy, thanks to you and the team for asking these questions of our, our insureds or potential insureds. And obviously there's no requirements for this stuff. This is just our way of supporting our folks, our organizations and our agents on, assisting them when events like this can occur or do occur. So I've kept you for a long time, my friends, and what I want to do is just thank you for spending this time with me today. I really appreciate it. I think it was a really fruitful conversation. It's one of those things you could talk about forever. And so I definitely appreciate the time today and your expertise. And also to all of you listening, thanks for listening to What's Brewing, and we'll see you next time.
Providing insurance answers together is what we do best. Thanks for tuning in to the latest episode of What's Brewing. Until next time.